Welcome to Black Man Folktales. Please kindly like and subscribe. It began with whispers, subtle at first, then louder, spreading like wildfire. Business associates stopped calling as frequently, and newspapers carried quiet rumors that Mike Williams had suffered a catastrophic financial loss. At first, Chioma dismissed them with a laugh. People envy us, Mike. They'll say anything to drag us down. But when she overheard staff whispering about unpaid salaries and saw her husband unusually tense during dinner, her confidence began to crack. The mansion that once felt like a castle suddenly felt vulnerable, and for the first time since her wedding, Chioma tasted fear. Mike played his role flawlessly. He came home late, looking exhausted, often clutching files with red-stamped documents. When Chioma pressed for answers, he finally broke the news. Chioma, we've lost almost everything. The bank is threatening to seize the house and the cars. I don't know what else to do. His voice trembled with well-acted despair, and Chioma's world collapsed around her. She gasped, clutching her chest as her thoughts scattered. All the diamonds, the cars, the luxury, gone. She shook her head violently. No, Mike. This can't be happening. You're a billionaire. But Mike didn't comfort her. Instead, he retreated into silence, leaving Chioma to battle her thoughts. That night, she lay awake staring at the chandelier, feeling the walls close in. All her pride, all her arrogance, it suddenly seemed meaningless in the face of loss. She thought of her friends, of how she had mocked them, of how they now had simple stability while she faced ruin. Fear slithered into her chest, and for the first time in years, Chioma felt the sting of helplessness she thought she had buried forever. The news spread like wildfire. By morning, social media buzzed with rumors about Mike's downfall. Chioma scrolled in horror as headlines screamed of bankruptcy and unpaid debts. Calls she once received daily from socialites and acquaintances stopped abruptly. The same women who once clung to her at parties now ignored her messages. Even her extended family members who had begged for favors suddenly became too busy. The empire she flaunted was crumbling, and with it, her carefully built throne. The isolation hit her like a hammer. She turned to Mike for reassurance, but he played his role perfectly, distant, distracted, and weary. I need time to think, he muttered one evening, leaving her alone at the dinner table. The silence of the mansion was deafening, each tick of the clock mocking her. She thought of her son in boarding school and panic gripped her chest. How would she explain to him that everything was gone? She clutched her jewelry boxes, her designer bags, her shoes, realizing for the first time they were nothing more than trinkets if hunger and shame awaited her. In her desperation, Chioma began reaching out to her old friends. At first, she wanted to pour out her fears, but pride stopped her. Instead, she tested the waters with casual greetings. To her surprise, they responded politely but distantly. It was clear the damage of her arrogance lingered. One evening, she sat by her window, staring at the glittering lights of the city, and whispered, "God, is this my punishment? Have you stripped me because of my pride?" The thought chilled her. For the first time, Chioma felt the universe turning against her. Desperation soon drove Chioma to do the unthinkable. With Mike seemingly powerless to salvage their fortune, she decided to take matters into her own hands. One morning, she opened her jewelry cases, staring at the gold necklaces, diamond bracelets, and luxury watches she had once flaunted so proudly. They were her treasures, her trophies of victory over poverty, yet now they were her only hope. With trembling hands, she packed them carefully into boxes and called the only people she thought might still listen, her old friends. When Amoka, Uche, and the others arrived, Chioma forced a smile, but her voice cracked as she spoke. "Please. I need you to help me. I need to sell some things quickly. The bank, they are coming for the house." Her friends exchanged silent glances, hiding their knowledge of the plan. One by one, they examined her jewelry and handbags, nodding politely but offering only meager prices. This necklace. I can take it for a quarter of its worth, Amoka said softly. Chioma's pride screamed in protest, but her fear silenced it. One by one, she saw the very items she had once mocked them for not affording. Each sale was like a dagger, cutting deep into her soul. By the time they left, Chioma sat on the floor, her empty jewelry cases scattered around her, tears streaming down her face. The humiliation was unbearable. The same friends she had mocked were now buying her treasures like scraps. She buried her face in her hands, whispering apologies into the silence, though no one was there to hear. The Pawn Queen had fallen, and for the first time, Chioma realized she might lose everything, her friends, her pride, and maybe even her marriage. The once lively mansion had become a tomb of silence. Staff members who used to scurry around with cheerful greetings now whispered behind closed doors or resigned quietly, leaving Chioma feeling abandoned. She wandered through the vast halls, her heels echoing like haunting reminders of emptiness. Nights became unbearable. Mike no longer shared their bed but often retreated into his study, locking the door. Chioma, left alone with her guilt, could only stare at the ceiling, replaying the venomous words she had thrown at her friends in the past. They were words she now wished she could swallow back. Even her social life crumbled. Invitations to luncheons, parties, and charity galas stopped arriving. Those who once worshipped her designer dresses and expensive perfumes now treated her as though she were invisible. Chioma's phone, which once rang endlessly, grew eerily silent. On one particularly cold evening, she scrolled through her old pictures, her posing with bags, cars, jewelry, and friends she no longer had. Tears blurred her vision. I had everything, yet I threw it away with my pride, she whispered to herself, her voice cracking with shame. The weight of her downfall pressed heavily on her spirit. In desperation, she tried calling her friends again, not to sell jewelry this time, but to simply talk. Yet each conversation was clipped, formal, and lacking warmth. They had become polite strangers. After hanging up, Chioma clutched her chest as though her heart might split in two. She was still surrounded by luxury, but for the first time, she felt poorer than she ever did growing up in the slums. Chioma's breaking point came when she visited her son at boarding school. The boy had grown restless, his friends whispering about the rumors surrounding his father. "Mommy, is it true Daddy lost all his money?" he asked one afternoon, his innocent eyes brimming with confusion. Chioma's throat tightened, and though she wanted to assure him, her voice betrayed her with trembling. "Don't worry, baby. Everything will be fine," she whispered, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But as she left, she broke down in her car, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. The humiliation of seeing her child affected pierced her deeper than anything else. She began questioning her very identity. Was she a mother first, or a trophy wife who had lost herself in wealth? She replayed moments of flaunting her designer gowns at her friends while forgetting to attend her son's parent-teacher meetings. Guilt wrapped around her like chains, and for the first time, she saw clearly how far she had strayed from her true priorities. That night, Chioma stood by her son's empty bed in the mansion, hugging his pillow and inhaling his scent. "If all this wealth is gone, what really matters?" she muttered. In the silence of that room, something shifted in her heart. Fear had pushed her toward desperation, but now, guilt began dragging her toward reflection. She realized she was standing at a dangerous crossroad, either continue clinging to her pride or humble herself completely to save what truly mattered. The facade finally cracked. Days of bottled-up fear and guilt exploded one evening when Chioma walked into the study where Mike sat with his head in his hands. She fell to her knees before him, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mike, I'm sorry. I've been blind, foolish, arrogant. I mocked my friends, I disrespected you, I let money poison me. Please forgive me before everything is lost." Her tears streamed freely, soaking into the carpet as her voice broke in desperation. For the first time, Mike saw genuine humility in her eyes. Mike, though still playing his role, remained silent, his face unreadable. This silence tortured Chioma more than any words could. She clutched his legs, trembling like a beggar pleading for scraps. Even if we lose everything, I'll stand by you. Just don't leave me, please. The room filled with her cries until her voice grew hoarse. She wasn't the glittering queen anymore, she was simply a woman broken by her own pride, stripped of illusions, begging for grace. That night, Chioma knelt by her bed long after Mike had left the study, whispering prayers she hadn't said in years. She asked for forgiveness, not only from God but from the friends she had scorned. In that moment, a seed of transformation was planted. She didn't know Mike's secret, nor that her friends were part of the plan. All she knew was that she had reached her breaking point, and if life gave her a second chance, she would never misuse it again. The next morning, Chioma dressed plainly for the first time in years. Gone were her diamond-studded necklaces, silk gowns, and glittering handbags. Instead, she wore a simple Ankara dress, the same kind she once mocked her friends for wearing. Her heart pounded as she walked down the familiar street to her old friend Ada's house. She stood outside the gate for a long time, rehearsing her apology, trembling with the weight of shame. When Ada finally opened the door, her eyes widened in shock at the sight of Chioma, barefaced and stripped of luxury. Chioma fell into Ada's arms before pride could stop her. Ada, I am sorry. I mocked you, treated you like you were nothing when you were always a true friend. Please forgive me. Ada, though stunned, remained silent at first. She wanted to believe Chioma's tears, but trust once broken is not easily mended. Still, she let her in, and they sat together for hours as Chioma poured her heart out, confessing her regrets and admitting her arrogance. Word spread quickly to the other friends. Some came reluctantly, expecting another performance, another manipulation. But instead, they found a humble Chioma, clutching her hands together, her eyes swollen from sleepless nights. I don't care if you never invite me again, she said. I just need to say I am sorry. Her voice quivered, but it was steady enough to make them realize something in her had changed. Despite her tears, her friends weren't quick to forgive. Nkechi, the boldest among them, leaned forward and said, "Words are easy, Chioma. Prove it. Would you still stand with us if you had nothing?" Her challenge cut deeply, but Chioma nodded without hesitation. Yes, I would. I don't care about riches anymore. I've seen how empty they are without true friends. The room grew silent as her friends exchanged skeptical glances, still unsure if her transformation was real. They decided to test her sincerity. For the next few weeks, they invited Chioma to join them in their ordinary lives, shopping in the local market, eating in small bukas, even visiting sick relatives in shabby hospital wards. Gone were the air-conditioned boutiques and fine dining she was used to. Each time, Chioma followed them without complaint. She bargained with market women, held crying children, and even carried groceries on her head with a laugh that surprised even herself. Slowly, our friends began to see that this wasn't a performance. Chioma was changing before their eyes. The once pompous wife who used to flaunt Gucci bags now felt joy sharing roasted corn by the roadside with them. At night, she still returned to her mansion of silence, but in those ordinary moments with her friends, she rediscovered the meaning of humility, of belonging, of love without conditions. One quiet evening, Chioma invited her friends to the mansion for dinner. She cooked the meal herself, a simple pot of jollof rice and fried plantain, without chefs or maids. As they ate and laughed, Mike entered the room, his face serious. He placed his hand gently on Chioma's shoulder. "It's time," he said, looking around at the women who had played their part in the greatest lesson of her life. Chioma froze as Mike revealed the truth: there was no bankruptcy, no repossession, no looming debt. It had all been a carefully orchestrated plan between him and her friends. The mansion, the cars, the money, none of it had been lost. Her friends, sitting across from her, nodded slowly, their expressions a mixture of relief and watchfulness. Chioma's spoon clattered onto her plate, her mouth open in shock as the truth sank in. At first, anger surged. How could they deceive her like this? But almost instantly, it was swallowed by waves of gratitude. Tears streamed down her face as she clasped her husband's hand. "You saved me from myself," she whispered. Then, turning to her friends, she added, "And you gave me the chance to see who I really was. I don't deserve this forgiveness, but I will spend the rest of my life proving I've changed." For the first time, her friend smiled without reservation. The test was over. The days that followed the revelation were the most peaceful Chioma had ever experienced. No longer chained by the need to flaunt wealth, she woke each morning with gratitude instead of pride. But she knew words alone would not prove her transformation. She had to show her husband, her friends, and even herself that she was no longer the pompous woman who once mocked those who loved her. With that resolve, she sat down one evening with Mike and told him of her decision. She wanted to start a charity foundation in her late mother's name, dedicated to supporting girls from poor families who dreamed of a better life. "If I can help just one girl rise without losing her soul to pride, then maybe my mistakes will mean something," she said, her voice trembling with determination. Mike, deeply moved, supported her wholeheartedly. Soon, with his guidance, Chioma launched the Grace Foundation, named after her mother. Her friends were the first people she called, not as assistants or subordinates, but as partners. Together, they organized outreach programs, visited schools, and donated learning materials to girls who reminded Chioma of her younger self. The sight of their bright smiles and hopeful eyes filled her with a joy that no diamond necklace had ever given her. For once, she wasn't flaunting wealth, she was sharing it. Her friends, now her sisters, saw the sincerity in her actions and finally believed that Chioma had truly changed. On the day of the foundation's launch, Chioma stood before a crowd of children, friends, and well-wishers. She wore no designer gown, just a simple white dress and a warm smile. "I once lost myself to pride," she said, her voice steady and clear. "But I have learned that true wealth isn't measured by cars or mansions, it's measured by the lives we touch and the love we give." Applause thundered through the hall, and in that moment, Chioma knew she had been redeemed. She glanced at Mike, whose proud smile reassured her that he had never stopped believing in her, even when she had strayed. Finally, she understood, humility was the greatest jewel she could ever wear. Thank you for watching Black Mom Folktales. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.